The Game Boy Advance is a pretty incredible system for gamers who love RPGs. I love it. It's got some of my favorite games of all time on it, including Mother 3. But the problem with the Game Boy Advance, in my opinion, has been that it's never been a very comfortable system to play on. Here's my Game Boy Advance. You know, I don't have one of the SPs that has the flip and the backlight, which I love the backlight on those things, especially the later revisions that have the brighter screen. But you can do some mods, but I haven't done any of those things. This is the thing that I got, and I still like it. I feel like the controller on it, the grip is more comfortable than the SP, but it's still not really great. Today I'm going to be talking about my favorite ways to play the Game Boy Advance RPGs when I can. Starting with just a small kind of pro tip. You know, this is my Game Boy Advance. It doesn't have the rechargeable battery that the SP does. But if you also have one of these, I highly recommend getting yourself some Eneloop batteries. They used to be made by Sanyo, now they're made by Panasonic. These are some incredible batteries that are actually life-changing. Stop throwing away AA's into the landfill, get yourself some rechargeables. They last much longer. I've had these guys for like 3 years, believe it or not. They've been in everything from TV remotes to my wireless mouse that doesn't have a rechargeable battery built in. It's better for the environment to have replaceable rechargeable stuff rather than the lithium-ion batteries that are like built in and then you just gotta throw the whole device away when the battery stops working eventually. So this is a pretty sustainable way to go, I think. I am more of a console gaming experience kind of person myself. RPGs are, in my opinion, best played in long haul spurts. You know, I don't like to just sit down and play for a few minutes, crank out a few levels and go. I know there are other people who do like that, and more power to you guys. I'm just not one of them. So I'm all about that couch experience. You know, you sit down, you got the big TV, you hold a controller, it's nice and comfortable, and you go. And that's really what I've been aiming to accomplish for a while now. And I feel like I've finally come to a setup that I really enjoy. And I'm going to walk you through what that looks like here. This is my Game Boy Advance. Well, you know it's a GameCube, obviously, but it's also got this expansion on the bottom here that most of you are probably pretty well familiar with. It's called the Game Boy Player, and it is an addition to the GameCube that allows you to play Game Boy Advance games. Here's where you put the Game Boy Advance slot here. I've got my copy of Mother 1+2 here from recording some footage a little while ago. This is a fantastic start. Now I know what you're thinking, you'd rather play on original hardware. Well, what if I told you that the Game Boy Player itself is original hardware? Not just because it's made by Nintendo, but because when you open this up, it actually has all of the same software, all the same chips, everything from an original Game Boy Advance. This little box here has a Game Boy Advance in it that just happens to feed its inputs and outputs through the bottom of your GameCube. So it doesn't really get a whole lot more original hardware than hardware made by Nintendo using the same chips and everything. The trouble with these is that a lot of people lost the disc that goes along with them. I have that disc and I'll show that to you here. Well, this is actually the disc. This is just a case to help it look good among my other GameCube games. But this disc is actually pretty hard to find and pretty expensive if you're looking for it by itself. But last I checked, the Game Boy Player itself that you just hook up to the GameCube is pretty cheap if you buy it loose. And here's the thing. This, as expensive and as rare as it is garbage. You don't need it anymore. Don't worry about getting this. Just get yourself a Game Boy Player loose, and I'll show you some pretty cool stuff you can do. But yeah, anyway, so I just put this in, and it looks great on the shelf just like that. And speaking of looking great on a shelf, here's the other thing I wanted to show you guys real quick. If you haven't already seen my video on making custom cases for your Game Boy Advance games or other games, I'll have a link to that in the description, but these Nintendo DS cases, I'll link to these as well. They have a spot in them at the top to hold your Game Boy Advance games. Really great way to play your Game Boy Advance RPGs is to protect them until you're ready to play them. So make sure you protect your games, get some cases for them. That way they're good to go when you are. So getting back to the Game Boy Player itself, you'll see I've got a couple of interesting things connected here. One of these is the Wavebird receiver. That's not something I'm really going to cover too much today. It's nice, but you don't have to have one. This guy right here, this SD card to GameCube memory card adapter, is the secret sauce. And you don't even have to have a special Pro Action Replay disc or anything like that, because you can actually boot up some custom software off of this SD card using a copy of Wind Waker and a few other games out there as well. There is a trick to it though, and you do have to have a Nintendo Wii, and I'll detail some of those steps as we go. So I use that SD card adapter to boot up some custom software called the GameBoy interface. That is basically the homebrew piece of software that replaces the need for that GameCube disc, the actual Game Boy player disc. Yeah, that's me. You're probably wondering how I got into this crazy situation. Editing Derek here to let you know that I also omitted a really important detail here, and that is that the Game Boy interface is actually better than the original disc because it actually puts out pure pixels that aren't skewed and scaled and stretched and blurred a little bit like what happens with the Game Boy player disc itself. So the Game Boy interface is actually better in every meaningful way. And the way this works is I put some software onto the SD card, and I have a patched save file for Wind Waker that I've applied to my GameCube memory card that I applied using a Nintendo Wii. All I had to do was copy it from the Nintendo Wii's SD card over into the memory card using the built-in tools. And now whenever I load up a game on Wind Waker, it crashes the game in a very specific way that causes it to load some software that will allow you to load other pieces of software off of the secondary GameCube memory card. So that's how I open up the Game Boy interface. And from there are several other video modes that I can have it output to, which is especially handy when paired with the digital output option for the GameCube. It used to be pretty difficult to get a nice high quality signal from the back of your GameCube. The proprietary cables that you used to have to buy used to be like $300 or more, but now there's way more affordable ways to go. There's several options available as far as converting that digital signal into HDMI, which is the route that I chose to go because I'm going to be capturing this in my software anyway, which is HDMI only. But there are other analog options out there for those of you who would rather play on an analog TV instead. This is just one of the several options available that I'll link to in the description as well. So be sure to check out the links in the video description to see the options available for getting some really incredible video out of your GameCube, which really helps in getting that especially incredible look out of your Game Boy Advance when you're playing it on your GameCube. Now obviously you can get away with something like a composite or S-Video, and for a number of years, that's exactly what I did. Here's some sample footage from my review of Sword of Mana, in which I did exactly that, using S-Video to capture a lot of that footage. And now let's see what that looks like compared to the digital version of that from the HDMI port on this adapter. The difference, in my opinion at least, is night and day, and the fact that I can blow it up on a big screen TV and have it still look relatively sharp compared to S-Video or composite. Oh, this is the way to go, no doubt about it. Here's some other footage also that I recently captured just for some other points of reference as well. So that about covers how to get the best video quality out of your GameCube, but I still want that console experience, and I sure as heck don't want to play it on the terrible D-pad on one of these guys. Oh, by the way, the Wavebird is incredible as a wireless controller, and I still use the Eneloop batteries on this guy too. But it's not exactly what I would say is ideal for Game Boy Advance games. Well, there are a couple of options that I really enjoyed that I'll show you here real quick. One of the best ways to do that is if you have one of the original Game Boy Advances, the especially wide ones that have the wider grip, is you can get one of these Game Boy Advance link cables that plugs into the top of the Game Boy Advance, and then the other end plugs into your GameCube, just like so. And then you plug it in and you turn it on. You do have to have fully functioning batteries in order for this to work though, so just keep in mind, rechargeables would still be the way to go with this guy, if that's the way that you choose to go. But there are a couple of other options that are a little more expensive depending, like if you already have the Game Boy Advance, this is the cheapest way to go. And believe it or not, they still sell these too, brand new. So I'll link to them also if you're interested in where you can get one of those. I also want to give an honorable mention to the old school digital controllers. Those look incredible, and from what I hear, they sound like they're pretty solidly built. Slight issues with the D-pad, but otherwise they're pretty much exactly knockoffs, essentially, of the original Hori digital controller for Game Boy Advance games. They look pretty fantastic, if I can say so. But like I said, the D-pad I've heard has some issues, but here's the solution that I finally landed on that make it really feel like I'm at home again. And that is by using one of these Super Nintendo or Super Famicom controllers in tandem with this RAFnet Super Nintendo to GameCube adapter. It does exactly what you think it does. You just connect the two ends together, plug this end to the GameCube, and you play on a legitimate Super Nintendo controller. And that's one of my favorite controllers of all time. You know, there are different ways you could do this. RAFnet does offer a variety of different kinds of adapters, so you could play on a PlayStation 2 controller if you'd prefer. I felt like the Super Nintendo controller would get me closer to that original Hori mini-pad style controller adapter feel, and it feels phenomenal. This is how I played through Mother 1 and Mother 3 for my reviews of those games. So make sure you check out the RAFnet adapters if you're interested in something like this. The combination of all of these small pieces, they can add up. I'm not going to tell you to go buy every single one of these things, but cumulatively, they've made a huge impact on my ability to play and enjoy and record all of these games in super high quality. I'll have, again, links to everything that you would need for a similar setup down below. I realize this is a pretty huge departure from a lot of the JRPG specific content that I like to make, but I put a lot of time and effort into curating these pieces to get myself that ultimate feel, that ultimate experience of being able to play the games in the highest fidelity in the most comfortable way that I can. So if you're interested in more stuff like this, let me know. Until then, please do be sure to get subscribed because I am SuperDerek. I make thoughtful and thought-provoking videos for gamers who love RPGs, and I'll see you in the next one. Have a great day, everybody.